Commander Zethkar watched the human delegation with barely concealed amusement as they shuffled across the pristine metal floors of the Galactic Defense Station. Their movements were so ungainly, so primitive. The humans bumped into each other, stumbled over their own feet, and one of them even dropped a datapad that clattered noisily across the floor. This is what Earth sends to represent their military prowess? Sub-Commander Vexta whispered through her breathing apparatus, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence to express disbelief. The Cathari had evolved on a world with 3 times Earth's gravity, making them naturally faster and more agile than most species. Their reflexes were lightning quick, their movements fluid like liquid mercury. To them, watching humans move was like watching creatures trapped in thick mud. "Look at how they lumber," Zethkar replied, adjusting his optical enhancers to get a better view. "Their reaction times are abysmal. In combat simulations, the average human takes 0.3 seconds to respond to a threat. Our warriors respond in 0.08 seconds. The human delegation was led by General Patricia Morrison, a weathered woman with gray streaks in her dark hair. Behind her walked a mix of officers and what appeared to be enlisted personnel. Among them was an unremarkable man in his 30s, average height, with the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. His name tag read SSG Martinez, but nobody paid him any attention. The meeting was supposed to be a formality. The Galactic Council had been pressuring Earth to contribute to the war effort against the Xanthari hive, a species of insectoid creatures that had been consuming entire star systems. Every civilized species had contributed their best warriors, their fastest ships, their most advanced weapons. Earth's contribution was disappointing. "Honored Council members," General Morrison began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, "Earth is prepared to offer our full support to the war effort." Supreme Chancellor Morden, a towering Alteran with skin like polished obsidian, leaned forward in his hover throne. "General Morrison, we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm, however, we must be realistic about human capabilities. Your species excels at many things: engineering, problem-solving, even diplomacy. But warfare? Your people are simply too slow." The other council members nodded in agreement. The Veltari representative, whose species could move so fast they appeared as blurs, spoke up. "In the time it takes a human to draw a weapon, a Xanthari warrior can cross 50 meters and deliver a killing blow. We cannot, in good conscience, send humans into direct combat." Morrison's jaw tightened, but she maintained her diplomatic composure. "With respect, Chancellor, I believe you underestimate what humans can accomplish when properly deployed." "Perhaps," Morden replied with what passed for a smile among his people. "But we've run the simulations. Human reflexes, human speed, human agility all fall far below galactic military standards. However, we could use human support in logistics, medical support, perhaps engineering roles." Behind Morrison, Staff Sergeant Carlos Martinez shifted slightly. To the aliens, it looked like mere fidgeting, another example of human restlessness and lack of control. They didn't notice the way his eyes swept the room, cataloging every detail, every potential threat, every advantage. They didn't see how he unconsciously calculated distances, wind patterns from the air circulation system, or how his breathing had automatically steadied into the rhythm he'd learned in places whose names were classified. "What if we were to prove human combat effectiveness?" Morrison asked. "A demonstration, perhaps?" The council members exchanged what could only be described as condescending glances. Zethkar spoke up. "General, we've seen human combat footage. Your warriors are brave, we'll grant you that, but bravery cannot overcome biological limitations." "The Xanthari move like lightning," added Vexta. "They can leap 30 meters in a single bound. Scale walls like gravity doesn't exist, and their natural armor can deflect most energy weapons. What could humans possibly do against such creatures?" Morrison turned to glance at Martinez, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "What if one of our soldiers could eliminate a Xanthari warrior from say 1,500 meters away?" The chamber fell silent. 1,500 meters was an incredible distance for any species. Even the Cathari, with their enhanced reflexes and superior technology, rarely engaged targets beyond 800 meters. Impossible, Morden declared. No organic being can accurately engage a target at such range, especially not a moving target. The atmospheric interference alone would make such a shot pure chance. The Xanthari move in unpredictable patterns, added the Veltari representative. They don't follow linear paths or standard military movement. Hitting one at 1,500 meters would be like trying to shoot a raindrop in a storm. Morrison smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Staff Sergeant Martinez, would you care to comment? All eyes turned to the unremarkable human who had been standing quietly in the background. Martinez stepped forward, and suddenly the aliens noticed something different about him. His movements were economical, precise. When he walked, there was no wasted motion, no unnecessary sound. His eyes swept the room once more, but this time they caught the predatory quality in his gaze. 1,500 meters is well within effective range, General, Martinez said quietly. His voice was calm, almost conversational, but there was something underneath it, a confidence that seemed to radiate from his very bones. Zethkar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the chamber walls. Human, do you understand what 1,500 meters means? That's beyond the visual range of most species. You couldn't even see a target at that distance, much less hit it. Martinez turned to look at the Cathari commander, and for a moment, Zethkar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of military service, a chill of unease. The human's eyes were absolutely steady, absolutely certain. Sir, I've made shots at twice that distance, Martinez said simply. The longest confirmed kill in human military history is 3,540 meters. That's over 2 miles. The silence that followed was deafening. The council members looked at each other, then back at the humans, clearly unsure if they were being told the truth or subjected to an elaborate bluff. That's... Morden began, then stopped. That would require mathematical calculations beyond ... Beyond what most species can manage in real time, Morrison finished. But humans have been hunting at extreme range for thousands of years. We've had to, Chancellor. We're not the fastest, we're not the strongest, but we've learned to kill from distances that most predators can't even comprehend. The Veltari representative's translator struggled with the rapid chittering sounds he was making. When it finally caught up, the words that emerged were impossible. No organic mind can calculate trajectory. Wind drift, atmospheric pressure, target movement, and a dozen other variables in the time required for combat. Martinez spoke again, still in that same calm voice. We don't calculate it, sir. We feel it. That statement hung in the air like a challenge. The very idea that any species could feel such complex mathematics was absurd to minds that relied on technology and raw physical capability. A demonstration then, Morden said finally. If Earth truly believes that human warriors can contribute meaningfully to this war, prove it. We have a training facility on Kepler 442b, actual Xanthari prisoners who have volunteered for combat, testing in exchange for better treatment. If your ... sniper can eliminate a target at 1,500 meters under combat conditions, Earth will be granted full military partnership status. Morrison and Martinez exchanged another look. And if he fails? Then Earth accepts a support role and stops making claims about human military effectiveness. Morden replied, the stakes couldn't be higher. Humanity's place in the galactic community? Their right to stand as equals among the stars. Their very survival if the war went poorly. It all came down to one shot. We accept, Morrison said, as the council session adjourned and the various species began filing out. Martinez remained motionless. He was already thinking about the shot, wind patterns on an alien world. Gravity differences, atmospheric composition, the likely behavior patterns of a Xanthari warrior. In his mind, he was already there, already feeling the familiar weight of a rifle, already controlling his breathing, what none of the aliens understood. What they couldn't possibly comprehend was that they had just challenged a member of the most patient, most persistent, most lethally precise species in known space. Humans had crawled through mud for days to make a single shot. They had waited motionless in snow and heat and rain for the perfect moment. They had turned killing at extreme distance into an art form. The Cathari thought humans were slow and clumsy. They were about to learn the difference. Between being fast and being deadly, the difference. Between reacting quickly and thinking several moves ahead, the difference between having good reflexes and having perfect timing. Tomorrow, on Kepler 442b, Staff Sergeant Carlos Martinez would teach the galaxy a lesson about the patient, terrible precision of the human hunter. The journey back to the Galactic Defense Station was conducted in complete silence. The alien representatives sat in their respective sections of the transport vessel, each lost in thoughts that challenged everything they believed they knew about warfare, about intelligence, and about the strange species from the small blue world called Earth. Commander Zethkar found himself repeatedly accessing the sensor recordings from the demonstration, watching the impossible shot over and over again. The data was indisputable. A single human had eliminated a moving Xanthari warrior at 1,500 meters, using primitive kinetic weapons. But the data couldn't explain how it was possible. "Run the predictive analysis again," he ordered his aide. "Sir, I've run it 17 times. According to our combat computers, the probability of success for that shot was 0.0003%. Essentially impossible, and yet it happened." Subcommander Vexta was having similar difficulties reconciling what she had witnessed with what she understood about combat effectiveness. "The human didn't even use targeting computers," she muttered to herself. "No environmental sensors, no ballistic calculators, no predictive algorithms. How does an organic mind process that much information?" The Veltari representative was perhaps the most troubled of all. His species prided itself on speed and reflexes, on the ability to react faster than any other known species. But what they had witnessed wasn't about reaction time. It was about something else entirely. Something his people had never encountered before. When they arrived back at the station, Supreme Chancellor Morden convened an emergency session of the Military Council. The chamber that had seen the human delegation hours earlier was now filled with senior military commanders from every species in the Alliance. "We need to discuss the implications of what we witnessed today." Morden began without preamble. "If the humans can consistently perform at the level we observed, it changes everything about our strategic approach to the Xanthari conflict." General Morrison and Staff Sergeant Martinez were invited to address the assembly. Martinez had changed from his combat gear into a standard dress uniform, looking once again like the unremarkable human most of the aliens remembered from their first meeting. The transformation was unsettling. How could someone appear so ordinary and yet be capable of such extraordinary precision? "General Morrison," Morden continued, "we need to understand what we're dealing with. Is Staff Sergeant Martinez exceptional among human warriors, or is this capability more common than we realized?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Chancellor Martinez is an exceptional soldier by any standard. But he's not unique. Every human military has specialists like him. We call them snipers, and they represent the pinnacle of a hunting tradition that goes back to the dawn of our species." "Impossible," interrupted Zethkar. "The level of skill required? Surely such individuals are rare, perhaps 1 in a million." "Actually, sir," Martinez spoke up, "in the United States Army alone, we graduate about 2,000 qualified snipers every year. That's just one human military organization, and we're a relatively small species." The number sent a ripple of shock through the assembly. 2,000. Every year, from one organization, on one world. "But the computational requirements," protested the Alteran military advisor. "Our best targeting systems can barely manage what you accomplished with organic neural pathways." Martinez exchanged a look with Morrison, who nodded for him to continue. "Respectfully, sir, you're still thinking about this wrong. We don't compute the shot, we feel it. It's intuitive. Like you might instinctively know how to move through space, we instinctively understand trajectory and timing." "That makes no evolutionary sense," declared the chief Cathari scientist. "Why would a species develop such specialized hunting capabilities?" Morrison stepped forward. "Because we had to. Earth is a world filled with predators faster than us, stronger than us, more dangerous than us. We survived by becoming the ultimate persistence hunters. We learned to track prey across vast distances, to understand their behavior patterns, to wait for exactly the right moment to strike. But the distances involved, Vexta protested. 1,500 meters is beyond the range of any natural hunting scenario. Not for humans, Martinez replied. Our ancestors were making kills at extreme range with primitive weapons thousands of years ago. When we developed firearms, we just applied the same instincts to longer and longer distances. The longest confirmed sniper kill in human history is over 3,500 meters. That's over 2 miles. The silence that followed was profound. The aliens were beginning to understand that they hadn't just witnessed a demonstration of superior marksmanship. They had encountered a completely different approach to warfare itself. Let me understand this correctly, Morden said slowly. You're telling us that humans have weaponized patience, that your military doctrine is based on waiting for the perfect moment rather than overwhelming speed or firepower. Among other things, yes, Morrison confirmed. We've learned to be very good at sitting still for very long periods of time, thinking very carefully about our next move, and then executing that move with absolute precision. The Veltari representative spoke up, his translator struggling with the rapid clicks and chirps of his natural language. This patience you speak of, how long can humans maintain combat readiness while remaining motionless? Martinez answered without hesitation. The record for a sniper remaining in position is just over 4 days. No food, minimal water, waiting for one specific target to appear for just a few seconds. 4 days, Sethkar repeated numbly. Remaining in the same position for 4 days. Sir, if the mission requires it, a human sniper will wait as long as necessary. Days, weeks if required. We're very good at being patient. The implications were staggering. While every other species in the galaxy had developed warfare based on speed, reflexes, and overwhelming firepower, humans had evolved something completely different. They had turned waiting into a weapon. They had weaponized time itself. The Xanthari, the Altaran advisor said suddenly. Their entire tactical doctrine is based on speed and unpredictability. They move fast, strike hard, and disappear before conventional forces can respond. But if humans can predict their movements... We've been studying the combat footage you provided, Morrison said. Xanthari movement patterns aren't actually random. They're following instinctual behaviors that can be predicted by someone who knows how to read them. What looks like chaos to you looks like a pattern to us. The military implications were becoming clear. For months, the Galactic Alliance had been losing ground to the Xanthari specifically because their rapid, unpredictable attacks couldn't be countered by conventional tactics. Every attempt to respond quickly had failed because the insects were always faster, but humans didn't need to be faster. They just needed to be in the right place at the right time, with the right weapon pointed in the right direction. They could turn the Xanthari's speed against them, predicting where they would be rather than chasing where they were. How many snipers can Earth field? Morden asked. Morrison smiled. Every human military maintains sniper units. Between all our nations, we could probably deploy 50,000 qualified long-range specialists within 6 months. More if we accelerate training programs. 50,000? The number hung in the air like a promise and a threat. 50,000 patient, precise, invisible hunters who could reach across impossible distances and deliver death with surgical accuracy. There's something else, Martinez added quietly. What you saw today was a demonstration shot under controlled conditions. In real combat, we work in teams. Spotters who help read wind and distance, support elements who can call in additional firepower, coordination with regular infantry units. What you saw was just one person with one rifle. Imagine what we could accomplish with proper support. Zethkar was studying the after-action reports on his personal display. The Xanthari leadership caste, they're the key to their tactical coordination. Take out their commanders and their forces become disorganized. but they stay well back from the front lines, protected by layers of warrior forms. How far back? Martinez asked. Intelligence suggests 3 to 5 kilometers behind their advance elements. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. That's definitely doable. Challenging shots, but well within human capabilities, especially with proper planning and support. The alien commanders were beginning to understand what they were being offered. Humans couldn't match the Xanthari in direct combat. They were too slow, too fragile. But they didn't need to fight the Xanthari directly. They could reach across vast distances and eliminate the creatures that mattered most, turning the insects' own tactical superiority against them. There's something else we need to discuss, Morrison said. Human military doctrine isn't just about individual skills. It's about teamwork, adaptation, and combined arms tactics. Our snipers are just one part of a larger system that includes reconnaissance, artillery coordination, close air support, and special operations. You're proposing a complete restructuring of our tactical approach, observed the Veltari. Representative, I'm proposing we use human capabilities the way they're meant to be used, Morrison replied. Not as faster aliens, but as something entirely different. We're patient, Kepler 442b was a hostile world by anyone's standards. The gravity was 1.3 times Earth's standard. The atmospheric pressure was thick enough to make breathing difficult, and the constant winds could knock an unprepared being off their feet. To the assembled alien observers, it was just another challenging environment. To Martinez, it was just another day at the office. The training facility had been hastily converted into an observation platform. Representatives from 7 different species had gathered to witness what many privately believed would be humanity's humiliation. Advanced sensor equipment lined the observation deck, capable of tracking projectiles moving at hypersonic speeds and analyzing every aspect of the coming demonstration. Commander Zethkar stood at the front of the platform, his forearms crossed in skeptical anticipation. The target zone has been established at exactly 1,500 meters, he announced to the assembled crowd. The Xanthari prisoner has been informed that successful evasion will earn him additional privileges. He has every motivation to make this as difficult as possible. Through the reinforced transparasteel windows, they could see the target area, a rocky canyon with multiple levels of cover, shadows that shifted constantly in the alien sunlight, and terrain that would challenge even the most advanced targeting systems. The Xanthari warrior is designated Combat Form 7, continued Zethkar, standing approximately 3 meters tall, natural armor plating, capable of moving at speeds up to 40 kilometers per hour in short bursts, and possessing the instinctual evasion patterns that have made his species so deadly in ground combat. General Morrison stood beside Martinez, who was methodically assembling his rifle. The weapon looked almost primitive compared to the energy weapons carried by galactic forces, a long-barreled mechanical device that fired solid projectiles using chemical propulsion. Ancient technology, by galactic standards. Staff Sergeant, Morrison said quietly, are you ready? Martinez looked up from his rifle, which he had been checking with the patient care of a craftsman examining his tools. Almost, General. Just need to get a feel for the conditions. He moved to the edge of the platform and held up a small piece of cloth, letting it flutter in the wind. Then he dropped a handful of dust, watching how it scattered. The alien observers exchanged glances. More primitive behavior from the backward humans. What they didn't understand was that Martinez was reading the environment like a book written in a language they had never learned to speak. Wind direction at ground level, how it shifted at different elevations, the way thermal currents rose from sun-heated rocks, the atmospheric density that would affect his bullet's trajectory, all of it was being absorbed and processed by a mind trained to think in 3 dimensions across vast distances. Sub-Commander Vexta activated her recording equipment. For the historical record, she announced, the human soldier will have 1 shot. The Xanthari has been released into the target zone and instructed to move in random patterns for the next 10 minutes. If the human can successfully eliminate the target in that time frame, Earth's claims will be validated, And if he misses? Asked the Veltari representative. Then we move on to more realistic discussions about Earth's role in the war effort. Zethkar replied. Martinez had finished his preparation and moved into position. His rifle was supported by a bipod. His body stretched out prone behind it in a position that looked uncomfortable to species with different anatomical structures. He pressed his eye to the scope and began what the aliens assumed was target acquisition. What Martinez was actually doing was far more complex. He was becoming one with the environment, feeling the rhythm of the wind, the pattern of the light, the pulse of his own heartbeat. His breathing slowed, deepened, as he entered a state of consciousness that had been perfected by human hunters over millennia. Through his scope, he could see the target zone clearly. The Xanthari warrior was moving exactly as predicted, fast. Unpredictable bursts of speed followed by periods of motionless concealment. The creature was clearly intelligent, using every piece of available cover, never exposing itself for more than a few seconds at a time. Target acquired, Martinez reported in a calm voice that carried no trace of stress or uncertainty. The alien observers leaned forward. Sensors recording everything. On their displays, they could see what Martinez was seeing through his scope, the rocky terrain, the shifting shadows, and occasionally a brief glimpse of the Xanthari as it moved from cover to cover. How can he possibly track something moving that fast? Whispered one of the technicians monitoring the sensors. He can't, Zethkar replied confidently. No organic being has the processing speed to predict where that target will be by the time his projectile reaches the target zone. This is an exercise in futility. But Martinez wasn't trying to track where the Xanthari was. He was thinking about where it would be. His mind was processing patterns of movement, analyzing the creature's behavior, understanding its motivations and instincts. The Xanthari was fast, but it was also predictable in its unpredictability. Humans had spent thousands of years hunting creatures that could outrun them, outfight them, and outsense them. They had learned to think like their prey, to understand not just what an animal was doing, but what it was going to do. They had learned patience, the kind of infinite, terrible patience that could wait for exactly the right moment, even if that moment might never come. Martinez had been lying motionless for 7 minutes. To the aliens, it looked like indecision, like a human overcome by the impossibility of the task. They whispered among themselves about the foolishness of challenging galactic military wisdom with primitive human stubbornness. They didn't understand that Martinez was in a state of perfect readiness, his mind and body synchronized like a precision instrument. Every breath was controlled, every heartbeat accounted for. He wasn't waiting for the perfect shot. He was creating the perfect shot. The Xanthari made another dash across an open area, moving in a zigzag pattern that would have confused any computer targeting system. Martinez didn't even shift his aim. He was watching, learning, understanding. He's not even trying to follow the target, observed Vexta. Perhaps he doesn't understand the nature of the challenge. Give him time, Morrison replied. Though her own confidence was being tested by Martinez's apparent inaction. At minute 8, the Xanthari paused near a rock formation that provided excellent cover. It had been using this position regularly, always approaching it from the same direction, always leaving by the same route. A pattern hidden within chaos. Martinez's breathing slowed even further. His finger moved to the trigger, applying the first tiny bit of pressure. Not enough to fire, just enough to take up the slack. He had learned this technique in places where a shot meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure, where a single bullet had to count more than entire magazines fired by other soldiers. The Xanthari moved again. A lightning-fast dash toward another position. But Martinez wasn't watching where it was going. He was watching where it had come from and where it would need to go next. In his mind, he could see the pattern, the inevitable flow of the creature's movement that would bring it to exactly the right place at exactly the right time. 9 minutes, announced Zethkar. The human has done nothing but lie there. Perhaps we should end this demonstration before it becomes embarrassing. Wait, said General Morrison. Though she wasn't sure why. At that moment, Martinez felt it, the convergence of wind and timing and opportunity that he had been waiting for. The Zentauri was moving toward a position that would bring it into the open for exactly 2.3 seconds. Crossing a gap that would align with Martinez's firing position in a way that accounted for bullet drop, wind drift, and the creature's speed, Martinez's world narrowed to a tunnel of absolute focus. His heartbeat slowed. His breathing stopped. Every muscle in his body relaxed except for the one finger that mattered. The Zentauri burst from cover, moving at maximum speed across the gap exactly as Martinez had predicted. For a split second, it was visible, exposed. Following the path that Martinez had calculated it would take, the rifle fired with a sound that echoed across the canyon like thunder. The bullet traveled 1,500 meters. In less than 2 seconds, cutting through the thick atmosphere of Kepler 4.2b, fighting gravity and wind and air resistance every meter of the way. It arrived at the intercept point at the exact moment the Zentauri warrior crossed into that space. Moving at 40 kilometers per hour in a direction it had chosen completely at random. The impact was instantaneous and final. The observation deck fell into complete silence. On their sensors, the aliens could see the impossible had happened. A single projectile, fired by an organic being using primitive technology, had found its target across a distance that should have made accuracy impossible. "Confirmed hit," reported one of the technicians, his voice filled with disbelief. "Target neutralized." Martinez calmly engaged the safety on his rifle and began breaking down his position. To him, it had been a challenging shot, but well within his capabilities. He had made harder shots in worse conditions with higher stakes. How? Zethkara's voice was barely a whisper. The computational requirements alone? The variables? The timing? Martinez, look.